Good afternoon, viewers, and very warm welcome to the 12th episode of the Meet the Media Veteran series. So in the beginning of the show, today you enjoyed a very interesting clipping, and you can imagine, how this show is going to be today. Today in the episode, we have a very special guest. In fact, he is a living legend. He is someone who is an inspiration to almost two generations of cinematographers. Cinema students all across the globe have grown up watching his brilliant cinematic work. Before presenting his detailed introduction, may I first welcome the winner of multiple awards and two-time Academy Award nominee, renowned cinematographer, the living legend, Mr. Dick Pop, to the show. Very warm welcome to the show, Mr. Dick Pop.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for coming.
To moderate this session, we have with us one of the most talented cinematographers of Indian cinema, who has graduated to cinematography from the Los Angeles Film Schools and shot over 400 advertisement commercials and 8 very powerful artistic feature films, multiple shots, including Moon Molsons, and which was screened in Sundance Film Festival, and has worked on the films that have snuck on us at some leading festivals, including the Cannes Lion for advertisement. May I now welcome Mr. Karthik Vijay also to the show to moderate this session. Thank you so much. Thank you both of you for kindly joining us today on this show. So before we formally begin the show, may I now give the detailed introduction of Mr. Dick Pop. Dick Pop began his career as documentary film cameraman. He worked for many companies, including BBC, traveling world to remote and inaccessible areas, including war zones. He specialized in shooting films about endangered indigenous tribes, including Disappearing World, highly political films like World in Action, and also TV arts programs such as South Bank Show. From late 70s through the early 80s, Pop shot hundreds of concerts, many of the old grey whistle tests and music videos for the band's artists as diverse as Queen, Freddie Mercury, Tina Turner, The Clash, The Specials, The Police, Neil Young, and AC/DC. In the mid-80s, he moved into television drama and feature films, photographing amongst others, the Porterhouse Blue, for which he was BAFTA nominated, and Phillips Ridley, Reflecting Skin. In 1990, Pop was asked by the director Mike Lee to photograph Life is Sweet, beginning a collaboration that has produced 11 path-breaking feature films, including Naked, Secret and Lies, Topsy-Turvy, Vera Drake, Happy Go Lucky, Another Year, and Mr. Turner. Pop has twice won the top prize at Camera Image, the Festival of the Art of Cinematography, for both Vera Drake and Secret and Lies. In 1999, Lee and Pop were recognized at Camera Image with a major award for their career collaboration. Pop also won the Silver Frog at the same film festival for The Illusionist, for which he was also nominated for an Oscar, ASC and BSC awards. Amongst many wins and nominations for his work on Mr. Turner, he was awarded the 2015 BSc Cinematography Award and Royal Photographic Society 2015 Lumiere Award and Bix Vulcan for the Technical Artist at 2014 Cannes Film Festival. For the same film, he was also again nominated for an Oscar and BAFTA, ASC and British Independent Film Awards. Pop's many other credits include films for leading US maverick directors such as Richard Linklater, Barry Levinson, John Sayles, Christopher McQuarrie, and Jill Sprecher. In recent years, he photographed Legend about Notorious Cray Brothers, written and directed by Brian Helgeland, and in the New York, Angelica, for Michelle Lichtenstein, the son of painter Roy Lichtenstein. In 2017, Pop photographed Mike Lee epic period film Peterloo, set in the early 1800s, followed immediately by The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, set in the Malawi, the debut directorial film for the actor Chiwetel Ejiofor, who also wrote in Stars. In 2018, Pop returned to New York, where he collaborated with the Edward Norton on Motherless Brooklyn, which the actor also wrote and directed. Most recently, Pop photographed Supernova, an emotionally charged drama starring Colin Firth and Stanley Tucci, set in the Lake District and written and directed by Harry McQueen. It is such an honor having Mr. Dick Pop on the show today. And so without any further delay, may I request Mr. Karthik to begin the session. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rizwan. Hi, guys. So I think without further this thing, we've already seen the video that that you saw in the beginning of the show. That was by The Clash. I Fought the Law, and the reason also I think we showed it is just to show how Dick started, from where you started your career and stuff. I believe you started from music videos and then went on to documentaries and then to finally to features. Could you just take us through that a little bit, please?
Well, Kartik, it was the other way round, really.
Oh, sorry.
No, not a problem. I started in documentaries, really. My history is a long time ago, but I started in documentaries, really, which is what I really wanted to do from an early age. And it took me a long time to become an assistant camera in documentaries. It took me years to finally persuade someone to take me as their assistant. And basically what happened is that I met a young and very fine documentary cameraman who had just left the BBC. And obviously I was working at the time. Actually, I was working as a clapper loader in feature films. And I had been an animation cameraman for a few years. Yeah, for like 3 years. I worked in animation anyway, as an animation cameraman. And then I was very frustrated. It's not what I wanted to do. I had no real education. I left school when I was only 15 without any real diplomas or, you know, examination successes. So I didn't have the education background to get into the BBC as an assistant, a trainee, which is what I really wanted to do. I wanted to go into the BBC, but because I didn't have the education, the BBC rejected me over a few years. And I was very bitter and frustrated by this because I was so passionate, and I made my own films and I took so many photographs. I was really involved in evening classes and filmmaking groups where I was already working as a cameraman in Saturday and Sunday every weekend, making small films with groups of people at institutions, you know, like colleges, things. And I just could not persuade the BBC to take me. And finally, I met a young guy. He had just left the BBC, and he was obviously documentary cameraman out of the BBC. And first I did like just one day with him, and then we got on good together. And then he asked me if I would do another job, which was for a couple of weeks, which was really good in England. And then, I mean, he was really busy. And then he suddenly said to me, while we were doing the 2-week job, he said to me, I've been offered like a big documentary in South Africa. And this was during the apartheid era. Obviously, I'm talking about, you know, the 70s, early 70s. In fact, 68, 69, 70.
Wow.
And, he said, what do you think? Would you come with me? I was like, oh, yes, of course. You know, I was really excited. I'd hardly ever left England. I hardly traveled at all. And he asked me to go to South Africa, and that was it. I assisted him for seven years. I wasn't quick in becoming a camera person, a cameraman, which we used to call it. It's probably now, but I was I was probably 7 or 8 years, 7, I think. And then it was him. He persuaded me to become a cameraman myself in documentaries. He had a big job come in. He didn't want to do it. He didn't want to shoot it. He didn't want to go away for that period of time, months and months away. And he asked me, well, he didn't ask me, he told me that I should, that this was that I'd been an assistant too long, he said. You've been an assistant too long. You know how to shoot. And I did, really, because I had been with him for so long. Anyway, I'd learned a lot, and I was ready. So I took this documentary, and it was a very you know, well-regarded documentary series called Disappearing World, which was all about tribes around the world, endangered indigenous tribes and people. And so I took it, and that was it. I became a cameraman by shooting this film in somewhere off of a small island in the middle of nowhere in a rainforest. And shot this film, and I never looked back. That was me. I was a cameraman.
Wow. And so how did you start with how did you get on to doing music videos?
Well, over a few years of doing documentaries, and I reckon I was 10 years doing those documentaries, and I became very frustrated in the way documentary filmmaking. I mean, documentaries, when I first started, was a golden age of documentary filmmaking, certainly in the UK, and indeed in the United States as well, probably worldwide. New cameras had come in, very small cameras like the Eclair NPR. Before that, the Arri 16mm BL. I mean, these were cameras that changed the way that documentaries were filmed. Small crew could go away with small equipment and you know, with a minimum of people, you know, one electrician perhaps, or perhaps no electricians, and do these films. So it was a revolution that was driven by the advent of the small 16mm cameras. So yeah, it was great life, and I traveled the world and did many. I came to India, for example, and did a film about Rajasthani folk music and its influence. Its influence on cinema in India, how Rajasthani folk music formed a lot of the basics of Indian film music in Bollywood. So I went to RK Studios, and we filmed in RK Studios, and went on the set of Bollywood films, and we went to Rajasthan, and we went to the Pushkar Fair. So it was fantastic. My life was fantastic. But I became very frustrated about the fact that shooting these documentaries, I had no real influence or control over the finished product. And sometimes it worked, and I was pleased with what the director and especially editor put together. But sometimes it led to a great deal of frustration, where I would see the finished article and not agree with what had been made out of the wonderful things we did, how little of it was left. So I became very frustrated. And it also, at that time, video was coming in, and it changed documentary filmmaking, and that golden age was dead. It was dead. And so now they were taking these horrible video cameras with like one person with a microphone on the front of the camera, and they're going off and shooting these pretty lousy, bad quality video films. Of course, TV companies didn't care about quality or anything like that, really. They were after making it cheap. So it'd be like director, camera and sound all in one person. So I'd had I had a good reputation for handheld. For you know, I'm quite tall. I'm 6'3" nearly, and I could get above people's heads, and I was very good at handheld, which I'd learned lots on the documentaries, and I started to get work as an operator on concert films. And that clip that we just showed, I don't know whether the audience heard the sound of it, because I didn't hear any sound here, but did they hear any sound?
I don't know. We'll probably see in the live comments. I don't know. I couldn't hear it either, but it's okay.
I hope there's going to be sound on the clips that we're going to show. But anyway, moving on from there, I started doing concerts because of my operating, you know, skills, so to speak. And I did many wonderful concerts. And I moved from doing the concerts. I moved from there in the same world of music to doing music videos. You know, I started to do music videos a lot, and many music videos. And this was a fantastic learning curve for me, because in the music videos, I was able to use a lot of lighting, big lighting, to make all these, you know, these sets and whatever. But it was a lot about lighting, and I was able to learn using lights, which in documentaries I had very limited resources for lighting. And a lot of the films I did, you would go away with just 4 ENRO redheads, or 2 ENRO redheads and 1 blonde, 1 2K ENRO. So it was a choice you had, and a sun gun, a battery lamp. So that's all the lighting that I did lots of documentaries with when I travelled for long periods of time to the other side of the world. So music videos gave me the opportunity to learn lighting. And in that regard, I hope we've got sound, because they'll be diminished if we haven't. But I would like Obey to play the Freddie Mercury video I did, The Great Pretender, and you'll see the amount of, it's all lighting.
Right.
So, you know, if we could play that, that would be really good.
I think just so our viewers know, I think redheads are what, 800 watts, I think?
Yes, they are indeed. And the blondes were 2K.
2 kilo. Yeah, 2Ks, yeah.
I still use them. I still use blondes and redheads today because
they're lovely. They're fabulous.
Especially
I don't think anything can replace the tungsten filament as such, but
they're wonderful to bounce. Having a especially on either night work or say in a space like a studio or wherever where there's nothing, and then you create this world of a lit and the mood, and it is like being a magician and conjuring it up from scratch. The thing, it used to be much more on the days of when you shot one shot on celluloid. It was very magical because no one really had any idea apart from you.
Yeah, true.
Hopefully, you know, and I know for a fact I learned a lot later on that, you know, a lot of DPs would be absolutely unable to sleep because that film would go off to the laboratory. And then you would have to wait until the next day to see whether it had turned out good. You know, that magic has been lost now in digital. It's been lost. Because everybody can see that it's you know what it is, and everybody's got the same view of it. Nobody says to you anymore as a DP, how is it going to look? What is it going to look like? That's what the question was always back then on celluloid. Whereas now, you know, everybody can see. And of course, everybody can say that, which is not so great sometimes.
Yeah.
We like this, we don't like that, or do you think?
Yeah.
And there's more tinkering around with it these days than there used to be back then. Then it was quite, you know, that was it. Nobody really knew how it was going to be. So so you had to wait the next day, but that wait was terrible, terrible stress. And you know, I know a lot. You know, I had this. I'm very friendly with Roger Deakins. You know, who's the most wonderful cinematographer in the world. And Roger is the same as me. He couldn't sleep at night until he'd seen the dailies from the day before, how it was turned. He couldn't sleep. It was terrible. So that is the plus side of digital, is that you can go home at night having seen it already on the big monitor, and you don't really need to see dailies after that. You've seen it run through, and there's great satisfaction in and no stress in walking away at night, going home, and knowing that what you saw on the set is what it's going to be like on the screen.
Right. Like I just sometimes I miss the, like I would say, like a lot of people have asked me questions about what is the difference. Since we mentioned film celluloid earlier, people, I think, I'm sure they must have asked you the same thing as to the difference between celluloid and digital. Do you miss celluloid at all? And I always tell them that you have to treat them differently, as completely different. It's like difference between PCs and Macs.
Yes.
You know? But I can completely understand you having sleepless nights, because even you must have even worked with stocks which have like really less latitude, and and you had to be right on the ball for that. You know, if you have to get the correct right image. Whereas I think we have been very fortunate to have been working with stocks with greater latitude, and but I completely understand what you're saying about sleepless nights and stuff, and how digital's changed.
I think the look is not as great as many people say it is. I actually think you can create most everything to look like, if you want it to look like film, in say later in the DI suite, you can make it look very much like film. And quite often I will see a movie, say before this lockdown, this COVID-19, before that, when people did go to the cinema, I would often sit there looking at a film and thinking, is this on digital or is this on film? I mean, it's not. It's not that apparent, you know. And sometimes I would think, oh yeah, it's on film, and then I'd go home and look it up on IMDb or whatever, and oh my God, it was on digital. I really thought it was on shot on celluloid. So that side of it is not so. It's a bit woolly as to, you know, people can't say, oh, if it's art and you want to create a fantastic mood, then you have to shoot on celluloid because digital is too sharp, too unforgiving, too bland. But actually, that's not the case. It depends what you're doing and how you're doing it. And I would say after so many years shooting celluloid, my way of working didn't change at all, has never changed because I was shooting on digital. And that's without introducing grain and any artifacts that make it look like film. Actually, I think a lot of it is about the way you light. I would say, if anything, you could say, well, digital emboldens you. It gives you more confidence to go further, say with darkness and dark areas within the frame, and you know, the space between people, the negative space, and you know, darkness. You on digital, because you can see it on the monitor, on the set, it does embolden you to just turn it down and switch lights off, where with film you would, yes, sure, you would have to create the mood, but would you really go on celluloid as far as you do on digital?
No,
Because
I don't think so.
you didn't know whether it would you know, resolve on film. You weren't sure. That's a dividing line. So
right.
you know, I would say it's mixed. I'm very mixed about it. I would like to very much now, after having these last few years of just doing digital,
right,
last 10 years really of just doing digital, is to go back to film and, with the experience of having worked on digital for all these films that I've done, I would like to go back to film and really push it. And I have aspirations. I don't feel my days of celluloid are over. I would like to go back and shoot at least another film on celluloid and just take the same principles of shooting on digital and be emboldened to go darker and darker and see how it plays.
So, Dick, you did mention that while we were talking about reflecting skin, that you had certain inspirations from different artists. Like as cinematographers, we all have inspirations from different artists, like painters, photographers in general. For this piece, you said you were inspired by Edward Hopper.
Yes, it's the two painters who were. This film was shot in Canada, and in Alberta, Calgary, out of Canada, and the director himself was an artist and a painter. He was a painter and a writer, and the influences for the film were Edward Hopper, and we could show, if possible, the Edward Hopper's gas station while we're still fresh in our minds what we've just seen. I don't know whether Obaid could put that still up on the screen of gas station gas. Yeah, right. So there you go. It's as close as we could get, really, to this painting is what we did. Certainly in the close-ups of the father, when the father is pouring the petrol over himself, the sky is very similar, and obviously the gas pumps have got this wonderful. They're lit from within. They've got lamps inside them in the painting, so we reproduced that painting as much as we could, without being too self-conscious about it, that is. So there was the Hopper side of it. The film is called The Reflecting Skin, and if you can see it somehow streamed or get hold of it, it would have to be in a streaming library or whatever, but it's a fantastically beautiful film. And that was the director working very closely with me on what he wanted, which was a very painterly look he wanted for the film. Right. And so I would say the influence was very much on this scene that I've just showed you, the clip there, was this painting here by Hopper. But the other big influence on the film was the work of the American painter who's a contemporary of Edward Hopper's, and his name was Andrew Wyeth. And I don't know, Obaid, are you able to put up some Andrew Wyeth paintings on the screen so that the audience can see the Wyeths? Okay, so you'd have to see, just hold it there, don't move on, just let me talk about it here. The Reflecting Skin is set in cornfields and wheat fields in Midwest, and
Okay.
this landscape and the house that we chose for our location was really similar to the house up there on the hill.
Nice.
It had that white painted whitewash exterior, very lonely house sat in the middle of the prairie. So the colors of that Christina's world that we're looking at there were very much our colors were more vivid than that, but the whole feel of our palette was very much this. Show the next one, Obey. Yes, a typical Wyeth interior, very natural looking. You know, he had a very natural simplicity about light and wall colorings. Every wall coloring we're going to see here in these pictures, we on our film, The Reflecting Skin, try to emulate and make our walls the same colors as Wyeth paintings. So it was more of an obsession than it was of an influence. The director really I'll show you. Just show the next one.
I love the light in this. It's like
very soft.
Yeah.
I like the light too. I like the light on all of Andrew Wyeth's paintings. The whole filmmaking experience on this film, The Reflecting Skin, was really great. It was really great for me. And I can't ever before that remember feeling so happy with the result of the film, because sometimes, you know, the film you make or you think you're making as a DP, you might think you're providing a whole load of beautiful images, your work, and you pass all that over when it finishes and goes to the cutting room, and the editor and the director, it's taken away from you as a DP. It can be very, very frustrating as a DP to see what they make of that footage, because sometimes you get the impression you're there gathering images, and then those images which you're so proud of are either not used or they're cut in a way that is very unsympathetic, and you end up seeing the finished film and you're very frustrated because, and that is one of the downsides of not being a director and being a DP. But being a DP, you've got no jurisdiction over the finished product. And quite often, in fact, I would say most all the time, your comments in the cutting room about whether or not, if anybody says, well, what do you think about that? It's very difficult to make notes, because I can tell you from vast experience, those notes are always rejected. You may say, oh, what happened to the crane shot when the camera just started going up in the air and you cut? Well, we have to move on in the story. We have to tell the story. It went on too much. It was too long, to this, to that. And so we decided to cut away. And there's nothing you can say. Yeah.
No, true. When I started,
it's not your film anymore. It's not your film. As soon as your services are over and the film finishes, it's not your film anymore. Someone else goes, and that's the editor. It's the editor and the director, not the DP and the director now. It's the editor and the director.
Yeah. But talking about editors and directors, I think as DPs, even when you are working, there's a lot of we do have to think of edits and cuts, and we do end up, I think, discussing a lot with the director as to how would a certain angle actually be good for editing when we actually edit or not, you know. So I think, in a way, we would probably be responsible for that too.
Yes, of course, absolutely. Yeah. When we're out there working with the director on a scene, and we are, of course, looking at it as not beautiful images, but as a sequence, as a scene.
Yeah.
coherent, and you've got the angles and to be able to cut to. So that going back to that film, The Reflecting Skin, the director and I worked out every single shot in that film before we started shooting. Every single shot. I mean, I up until that point, I'd never had this experience. We worked every shot, and not only every shot, but at what time of day every shot was going to be filmed at. And it was fantastic because there were many interiors of the film, but there were also many exteriors. And so we would stand there, say, on location, and we would discuss it. And then if it wasn't good, we'd go back later in the afternoon. You know, it was a film shot early morning and late afternoon, a bit like Days of Heaven.
I was just going to mention that.
Yeah, very much like Days of Heaven, which they called that film. They called it Days of Heaven, Nights of Hell. I think it was a bit of an unhappy shoot. But anyway, on Reflecting Skin, every shot was worked out, and so we have to be at a certain time. We have to be preparing for this. And then that, so it was a fantastic collaboration, visual collaboration with the director about every frame in the film. Was one, we never had to talk when we got to a location. We knew exactly what shots we were going to do, and indeed we knew which ones we were going to start with, and then work our way through. So it was a joy, and the finished film, because the director was an artist in his own right, he wanted the film to be as beautiful as he could get it. That is partly why he wanted to make it. And so nothing of my work was lost. In fact, it was enhanced by the way the director basically cut the film together. So it was a truly satisfying experience, I would say, on that. And that, I must say, that's not always the case with being a DP.
True. I would agree.
You know, just from that clip, I think we forget about Andrew Wyeth and just see, because Obaid, you just had the clip from The Way of the Gun on the screen. Yeah, that came up on mine, and I'm just wondering whether you could play that Way of the Gun kidnap scene. Yes. This was, I'll talk over it. I don't know whether people are listening to soundtrack or not, but I'm not. But I went to America to shoot this film, and it was being directed by Christopher McQuarrie. It was his first film. Chris won the Oscar for The Usual Suspects, and he's a brilliant writer, and of course he went on to do and still shoot many films. So what I love about this film, and certainly I love about this clip we're showing you, is the fact that it's so well choreographed as gunplay. As what happens here is a standoff. These guys now here coming down this corridor are trying to kidnap. Him walking across there, Benicio del Toro and Ryan Phillippe are going to kidnap this woman who's heavily pregnant. She's a surrogate mother for a gangster, and they're two security, guys who are walking her, and our two. I just love the way it's shot. I love the angles that are used in it.
Yeah, it is.
It's brilliantly done.
It's like a dance, really.
Yeah, it's like a dance. And was talked about a lot as a kind of a lyrical dance.
Right.
So they're all standing off. They've all got guns. They're all pointing the guns in different directions.
Right.
He's threatening to kill the girl. They're pointing the gun at him behind. So it's a complete standoff. They're now looking to shoot at the baby.
Right.
Or threatening to, I mean. Partly, I mean, I didn't really change the lighting in this. I had the corridor lit.
Right.
Being able to shoot 360 degrees because we had very little time in this building before we're going to be thrown out. Very little time. And and look at that. It's a great frame. The gun on the gun, very Tarantino-like.
That was actually my next question. I was going to ask you how long did you have to shoot this?
I think we had like half a day. Perhaps we had the full day. I think we did. We had the whole day.
Right.
But there are so many shots, so much going on.
Right. Wow. And can I ask how many rehearsals did you all do for this?
I don't think we had that many. They had already choreographed it in a rehearsal space.
Oh, okay.
And we had to get shooting. Now, the other thing about this, you could stop it there now. The other thing about this scene that partly why I really wanted to talk to you about this film. Yeah, cut the clip. Okay. What I really wanted to say to you was that I went to America to shoot this film. I didn't know anybody there. Nobody. Right. Everybody was strangers. I had to have a local crew. We shot it out of Salt Lake City, and it was a local crew. And I had not worked with any of them before, not worked with a director before, nobody I worked with on that film.
Right.
So I felt in a very vulnerable position because in America, it doesn't work out in the first day or so, boom, you're out. You're on the phone. Now I knew that because I know the way it is. I've seen all this. And so I was absolutely desperate to be on top of everything so that when we started, we didn't fall behind, that we made, as they say in America, you make the day. You have to make the day.
Right.
And really important in the States, big money involved. You have to make the day. And so that you saw was my first day on the film, my very first.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't like you were building up over a period of time to get to this big scene. No, it was the first day. And I was absolutely very anxious that we made that day. And it involved a lot of operating, a lot of dolly work, etc. And in this building. So I went to the producers and said to them, now I heard it from from my gaffer, I think it was, who obviously I didn't know, I'd never worked with him, that the production were very, didn't want to have a pre-light. All right. This is my very first day. And the producers didn't want to pay for a pre-light over it was a Monday morning, that scene. So they didn't want to, there was a problem with the office, with the building being closed at the weekend. There was there were problems about paying the electricians and the grips to go in and riggers to rig the lighting requirement. And so there were all these reasons why they wouldn't have a pre-light. So I had to stand up and not knowing them at all, I went to them in the production office and said, you must give me a pre-light. You have to give me a pre-light.
Right.
This is not going to happen, and we're not going to make the day if you don't give me a pre-light. And I put my arguments to them, and finally, I know reticently, they agreed to me doing a pre-light. And it was like things to me like, well, what's it going to be like for the rest of the film? Are you going to want a pre-light on everything we do? You know, right. It's like that immediately. It's like you can't expect to have a pre-light on every scene we do in the film. And I was like, well, let's talk about that later on. And there are ways to do it. Right. You know, we send a few electricians ahead, whatever. But this is our first day. And for everybody concerned, we need to make it. So they agreed finally. Anyway, so we shoot the scene on the first day, and it's a triumph. We get the scene done. We finish the day. Everybody is really happy. The confidence level in me went up like that, from perhaps very low to high, because it looked so good and it was just great. And the director, Chris McQuarrie, was really happy. Right. There's a lesson. There's a lesson to all aspiring cinematographers. You've got to stand up and say your piece. You've got to, because if you don't, you can be dead in just a short space of time. If you feel that you need, you know, the backup and the resources that are going to make this work, you have to speak up. And then, if they don't agree, the production, it's kind of, you know, they may still try and punish you, but at least you've already said your piece to them, that you need it. And then they refused, and it doesn't happen. It's more on them. But anyway, we made the day, and the relationships after that with the producers, because the pre-light really worked, and it was all ready to go, and I could shoot 360 degrees on that set in a real building, real location. It was a triumph. And you know, and yeah, it wouldn't have been at all if I'd not had a pre-light. So there you go. There was as a lesson.
Great. Just you mentioned that I remember you mentioning with in your interview with Roger about the man who harnessed the boy who said that you mostly operate your cameras yourself. Now, when you went from the UK to the US to shoot this film, did you operate on this film, or did you have to, because it was the old methods, right?
Oh yes, on this film that I've just showed you, Way of the Gun, very, very worth getting. I think it's a really good film personally, but when it didn't do any business at all. But I've seen it.
I've seen it really way back when I was in film school.
It's got really great moments in it. He's very talented, Chris McQuarrie. It's got car chase, which is known as online. It's got fantastic gunplay. I know it's a terrible thing and all that. Fantastic gunplay in it, and it's also got things like the slowest car chase ever filmed, which is a car chase at like 1 mile an hour. Which is really, really worth seeing. It's the same fantastic choreography in the car chase as we just watched that building. In fact, it happens just a few minutes later. So, no, very much not me operating. Now, I did operate a B camera. I can't remember. I think I operated in that scene that we just saw. B camera. And would get in for close-ups and stuff, but I wasn't the main operator, and I didn't want to be the main operator on it because, you know, we had limited time. It was all a lot of lighting. And I was dealing with a whole load of people who I didn't know. So no, I had an operator, and I can't even remember now because it's so many years ago whether I chose that operator who was Ian Fox. Whether I chose him or whether production already had him on board, I can't remember now. But he was a great operator, and I discovered he had done many films with Russell Crowe, and I mean, really top man. He was really good. I still see him occasionally now. He had great ideas, and whereas I was trying to coordinate the whole thing and the lighting and the camera and the way it moved, but the operator, he really helped me make that first day. Now I have to say, if I'd been doing it myself and lighting and speaking with the director and the producers, like, I don't think it would have worked as good. So it's fantastic to operate yourself, and I do many films that I shoot, but sometimes I do not. But I always shoot a B camera, always. No matter what it is, I'm always on a B camera. And on that film, no, I wasn't main operator.
Okay, cool.
For all those reasons.
Great. Just a question that I had for you, Dick, is
Kartik, can I just add something to that?
Yes, please. That
was then. Nowadays, it can be very different, because nowadays, with diminished budgets, and say a film hasn't got the money, sometimes they don't have the money for an operator. So when they ask you to do the film, it's a little different to the way it was back then, because they'll say things to me like, "You will operate this, won't you?" But whereas that never happened back then. Certainly not in America. In America, on that film, Way of the Gun, you had to have an operator. Now, Roger did many films in the States where he always operated. I mean, he's really strong about he'll say no. That's as easy as that. If they won't allow him to operate, he won't do the film. As easy as that. And Roger they'd have to employ an operator, and that operator would sit. They used to call them tailgaters, because they'd sit on the tailgate of the camera truck and not do anything. And that for our production, that Way of the Gun, that wasn't possible. But that's the way it used to be. Whereas now they often only get you to do the film on a tight budget if you are willing to operate yourself.
True, because I remember when I was studying there in the US, I remember you couldn't operate without being. You had to have an operator on set, and I did hear about Roger operating and having, like, Roger and like even Rodrigo Prieto, all these guys, when they would operate, they would have an operator on standby, on set, always. But yeah, now it's changed, of course.
Like
sure.
Emmanuel Lubetsky, same.
Same, yeah.
It was a new generation, and fighting against the old school which were of course endorsed by the union as well. They're not really from production. They would have been happy not to pay an operator, but it was the union thing. You had to carry an operator, whether it worked or not.
True. So just a question that I had was, now obviously you worked a lot with Mike Lee, right? And you worked a lot like with many different directors. Now, as a cinematographer, when I'm working, like, what we need to do is we need to mold ourselves according to the director, try to achieve their visions and stuff. But we know I've only read about Mike Lee's way of working, and whereas even you mentioned how you worked with Chiwetel on Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. My question to you is, when you're working with so many different directors, how do you adapt? How do you how do you adapt to their ways and help them achieve their vision?
Well, you might say that's the experience I carry, I suppose, because when I did documentaries, I'd work with different directors all the time. I mean,
right.
Every project was with a different director. I mean, obviously, sometimes I'd go back and work with the same director, but I worked with so many different ones. And when it came
right.
to all that concert shooting and all those music promos, there were different directors every one. So I sort of carried that experience, not being fazed by that, and indeed relishing the different working practices that different directors have, because they all have completely different ways of making films. You might say that, the reason I got to shoot so many films in the United States for different directors, most of whom are maverick type directors who are not really studio people, but like independent filmmakers,
right,
of their love for Mike Leigh's films. So I got the breaks doing the films for these American directors largely on the back of my work with Mike. They kind of love Mike's films, famously so. American directors and actors adore Mike Leigh, and they would feel perhaps that some of that would rub off on their film if they employed me to shoot it. So I got to shoot for a lot of different directors through their love of Mike, but they're all completely different in the way that they. Some are were well prepared, some not. Some fantastic collaborators, some not. It's just a whole world, like real life. It just depended, and you didn't really get to understand that until you were there on the first day filming, and you think they're slightly different to what I imagined they were. That's the polite version. That's the polite version. Sometimes a bit of a shock, but that's that kind of, it never fazed me, because the other thing, Kartik, is that you didn't really I never really stepped off a plane and you were like going to shoot like the same day. You had all that preparation with that director. Some of the prep, very generous in America, very generous,
right?
And much more generous than it is in the UK. Instead of 3 weeks in the UK, it could be 2 months in America or longer.
Right.
Big budget project, it can be 6 months prep. I mean, if you haven't got it together after 6 months, well, there's no hope.
I know. True.
You might as well get another job. So these guys, they work on these big budget films. I mean, God almighty, they shoot tests for every kind of every single gag or whatever in the film. It's so well covered with tests. Actually, my life is not like that. I never really do those sort of big budget effects type films. It's
right.
I'm more driven by rich, emotional, human drama than I am for special effects type films.
Right. So during the prep for the films, would you do you also go through various photographers or various art and stuff with the directors and stuff? I know different people, it's always there, but like influences wise, can I ask who are some of your influences?
Yes. Well, I would say the biggest influence for me is Edward Hopper. I would say that his paintings resonate for me more than any other painter. And I'm talking about old masters and Rembrandt and Vermeer and all the things that people always say, oh my God, he looks like a Vermeer. or it looks like and you think to yourself, it doesn't actually look like that at all. What it looks like is either hopefully well lit, but it's our own image. It's not Vermeer and it's not Rembrandt.
Right.
But the Hopper, I don't really feel the same because he's such a cinematic painter.
Right.
And it's not only about it's about the light and it's about the composition.
True.
And the compositions and the backstory of paintings is I don't know, it's a total experience, one that I mean, there was a major retrospective of his work in London a few years ago, and I went like every day. I was in this gallery in London, and I have to tell you that I was the last person out of the show on the very last day when it closed at 9 p.m.
Right.
I was the last one out the door. I photographed this film in New York. It was my first film actually in New York that I ever shot, and it was really heavily influenced by Edward Hopper. And I was going through it here the other day,
right?
And I couldn't make the DVD and what I've got work in my machine. I could not make it work. So I wasn't able to supply a clip for it to you. But I'm going to try and get from the production a definitive take on this, because it's a very beautiful film. It stars Matthew McConaughey, and it's so Hopper. And I was looking at it, but I couldn't record a screen grab on it. Anyway.
I'm sorry. What's the name of the film, Dick? We didn't get that.
The name of the film in New York that I was just saying.
Yes.
It's called 13 Conversations About One Thing.
Correct.
And it was made. I don't know when you were in New York, but when you were there. But this film, it got so brilliantly received and reviewed.
Right.
I'm sure it didn't make much money, but as a satisfying experience, it was fantastic. And on that film, I did want to operate myself, and had to have somebody who was paid operator, who was tailgating. Okay, so we can move on from that one.
The next one a bit.
I mean, we'll have the next one, but I mean, for me, it doesn't get more beautiful than that. I just love the social realism of it, the natural light, completely natural, and not falsified at all. It's so organic.
Yeah, we've been always. Me and another director, friend of mine here, we've tried to decipher Edward Hopper's paintings, but we tried to do something, but we didn't even come close to it. But
yeah, I know it's. I just can't get enough of them. So, how are you going with the clips? With the Hopper paintings?
I don't know. I think there might be maybe a technical issue in the background, but in the meantime, I think while they figure this out, I think we can also maybe.
Hold on.
They're there.
Oh, yeah. We could talk about this. Why not? These photographs are by Don McCullum, and exhibition in London of Don McCullum's work just not very long ago at the Tate Gallery, and it was the most successful photograph exhibition in the history of the UK, and it was absolutely sensational. And he's mostly known as a war photographer. He's harrowing images of war and the victims of war. But these are the photographs that I really love, are of his early work in the North of England, in industrial Britain. And you could just flick on now to
next one, right?
Go next one. The thing about this is, I read he's a down and out tramp in the East End of London, probably complete alcoholic, and probably died within the year. But the thing about Don McCullum is he's in his 80s now, but he's still printing these photographs from the 60s and finding new ways of printing. The guy's amazing. He never, ever stops tinkering with the images from all those years ago. Just keep playing through if you can, Obed. So I just love his sense of composition. Here's a war one of the most famous war ones of Vietnam, of a shell-shocked soldier in Vietnam. The guy was completely destroyed by the war, and you can't really see it on this screen, but you can see his eyes on the photographic print, clutching his rifle and apparently shaking uncontrollably. So I just love his composition, love his drama in his photographs, and he is one of my favorite photographers, if not the favorite photographer that I so admire. I'm really not talking here about a film in particular. I just mean as an artist, I think he is unsurpassable. Just keep going through them.
Forward, please.
Oh yeah, okay. So I don't know whether the audience can see this, but there's people stood. This is a bombed out building in the East End of London after the war, and they're all characters there from a gang who are opposed by Don McCullum. You know, through, you see them all. There's like 7 or 8 of them on the third floor. So that photograph was a big influence for me on a film I did later, which was called Legend, which I did in 2015, I think it was, which was about the Cray brothers, but we shot it in colour, and probably actually it'd have been a better film if we'd shot it in black and white. I think I'd have preferred to shoot it in black and white, but that wasn't possible. And you know, to get backing on a black and white film. But that film I did, Legend, would have been pretty good in black and white. Just move on from there. Hey, I love his composition and you know, the depiction of post-war London. Yeah, look at that, beautiful, beautiful, like silver, the road going away from silver. So yeah, move on from there, and the sky. But all these printings are he printed freshly for that Take Britain show, and brought a new look to all this, you know, old work they'd done. So he's an obsessed artist, really. Keep going. Next one.
You do, yeah, this one. Nice.
It's beautiful. It's biblical. The composition and the man in the middle.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, a religious. It looks like a religious painting. It's just extraordinary, extraordinary light, and him in the center. It's mystical. The photograph is mystical and stunningly beautiful.
There are many layers actually also happening. There's some story happening at the back.
Yes, that's right. And the wonderful greys and dark areas and blacks, and then this apparition, this figure like in a shroud. It's fabulous. Go to the next one if you can, Abed. I think actually that's enough of looking at Don McCullum. Yeah, that one of my absolutely favourites. As a portrait, that is unsurpassable. War-torn family. It's the texture of it is just fantastic, and the subject, it's heartbreaking, and sometimes Don McCullum's work is very difficult to look at. The war stuff is very difficult to look at. Some of it so brutal, so painful to view. But that's enough of Don McCullum.
Yeah, there's
I would rather now go and look at the Hoppers if we can, because that's kind of what we're talking about. Whether anyway, yeah.
So I think I think while they are, we can move on. We can move on to. Do you want to talk about Bill Brand, or do you want to go into any?
I think we should move on to another clip of the film.
Sure.
Now we could look at The Illusionist.
Yes.
And I could talk about that for a little.
Yeah. So this was a film that had Edward Norton in it, right? And
yes, this was a film that had Edward Norton starring in it. Oh yeah, okay, come on. So yeah, let's watch it. Edward Norton's not a magician. He's the Crown Prince.
Discussion of the soul. All of the greatest religions speak of the soul's endurance beyond the end of life. So what then does it mean to die? I need a volunteer from the audience. Someone not afraid of death. Please. Someone. I assure you, no tragedy will befall you.
Are you hearing the sound okay?
It's low, but we can hear it. Yes.
All right. It's buffering a lot, yeah?
Yeah, it is. It is. I think COVID's like affected every internet connection ever.
So these two,
beautiful.
She's married to the Crown Prince, but she used to be in love, and they used to be in love together. Edward Norton and
I'm quite certain that we've never met before.
Jessica Biel.
Jessica Biel, yeah.
And the reason I'm showing this is because it's shot in a real theatre. And,
पता नहीं समझ में नहीं आ रहा क्या है मामला अब दिखाता कर चल रहा है ठीक अभी चल अभी देखो अभी चेक करो
we can oh. Well, we can stop.
okay, we can stop there. Yeah, it was
That was beautiful.
Yeah,
that was beautiful.
I can't really see that. It's difficult to look at like that, but
yeah.
Anyway, the scene is very beautiful, but it was also, again, it was the whole I hadn't worked with any of these people before. And I did have an operator on board this. We shot 2 cameras with me doing B camera.
Right.
That theatre was, we were only in it for 1 week, and
Wow.
production moved out. I think it was on the Friday night or Saturday night, I think. And then we, a theatre production, then we moved in at midnight on Saturday night, and we had to be ready for first thing Monday morning. So
No.
the production designer and all his team and my team worked from midnight on that Saturday night, through like 24 hours non-stop to get it ready for the Monday morning. And we only had 1 week, and then we were out. And that theatre was the first thing we did on the show, on the film.
Wow.
And we had to do loads of work in there to finish by our 5 days, 6 days that we had there. So again, it was a baptism of fire with huge pressure on me to make it look really evocative of the time and beautiful, and but also to finish on time and make the days, and the days were very long, and so there was a lot of pressure on me to come up with it on that.
Right. How much did we? Now I do know that whenever we get into situations like this, we do have a game plan of how we shoot stuff. But was there any? Did you all improvise a lot when you all were shooting this, or
no? Well, I don't think so. If I remember rightly, the director, whose name was Neil Berger, very talented, he asked me to do this film because of what I'd done on Topsy Turvy. I mean, obviously, there's a synchronicity about how one's brilliant career, how one's work evolves, and how you go about it. Because Topsy Turvy was universally loved as a film in America. They absolutely loved it in the States, and so Neil Berger loved the way the film looked in the theatre in that film. So he asked me to do The Illusionist through the work I'd done with Mike. And that was great. That was brilliant. And it also, of course, was the fact that Edward Norton was in the film, and Edward and I got on very well together. And Edward then, all those years later, asked me to shoot Motherless Brooklyn, and we kept in touch. And he just wanted me to do it right from the word go. So I was very fortunate with that. And nothing is by chance. It's all ordained. The way that work out. So. All I would say about The Illusionist is that I really like it as a film, and I really love Edward.
It was beautiful.
And it did me a power of good, the film, and I got awards for it all over the place, and I was proud of it. And but again, it was a lot of pressure to get that work in a short space of time. Right.
And would you like? Should we move on to Mr.
Yeah,
Chana,
you were asking me before about preparation. That film, that film was very much storyboarded. That by Neil Berger. He was a wonderful. Drawings were wonderful, and he had a game plan. He had a game plan for every trick, every illusion that Edward performed on the stage, and how we should go about. And some of them were very complicated. If you see the film, there are 180-degree moves on the stage off a crane. There's a crane going up and down. We had to build all this crane stuff in when we moved to the theatre, because we couldn't get it in after. it had to come in first, and a system was put down. I had very good gaffer on the film, really talented Czech gaffer. The film was shot in Prague, completely shot in Prague. Very good team, very fine Czech operator, Czech gaffer, Czech grips. So in a way, I was blessed with a really good team on that film, and I think it shows.
It's great. It's awesome. In terms of in terms of the look, is there anything that Neil had referenced before and he showed it to you? And was there anything like that?
I can't remember the conversations. All I know is this: that I knew that there were going to be footlights across, and I had a lot to say. And also, I tell you what else was brilliant about that film, really brilliant, was the production design. It would be terribly churlish of me and not honest if I made out that everything was down to my wonderful cinematography. The set design on that film was exemplary, fabulous, and the designer is Czechoslovakia's finest designer, and then he made a film later on called Snowpiercer, which was directed by the guy who did Parasite, the South Korean directed Parasite. Right. Snowpiercer is extraordinarily production designed, and he did that. So yeah, you are helped, enabled, assisted by production designer. It's not a one-man show, one-woman show. There's a whole team there, and that team is comprising of production designer, costume designer, makeup, everybody around you is all. They're all key to the way the experience is going to be.
Yeah, it can actually it could. I think any one of those elements, if they miss out, it could make or break the film.
Yes, very much so. Yes, you, as they say, you only need a hair out of place and it spoils it.
Right. Moving on, would you like to show another clip of The Illusionist, or would you want to move on to any of?
If Obay's ready there, we could show this, because the interior shows the work of the designer partly, and also this brilliant design at the front of it. I'm just worried about the way they're buffering and whether the experience of watching them is all worthwhile. But let's show it this.
Yeah, we can see how it is.
Can you just hold it there for a minute, Obey? Can you just freeze it? I just want to talk about something.
Obey, just freeze that, please.
Yeah. This scene starts inside as an interior, and it's very wonderful that what was created. It's in a real location. It is a real lodge, hunting lodge that the king's royalty back then had, crown dukes and princes. And then Paul Giamatti goes into this camera tracks in on his face, and we're outside, and we're in a sequence, and the sequence has got this real autochrome look about it, where they and that was discussed from the very beginning, but we decided that we wouldn't really try to do it in the camera in case it was wrong and too strong, too little. So we decided to shoot it pretty much straight, and then the elements of the autochrome look and early cinema look, like vignetting, flickering, this wonderful autochrome. I'm absolutely adored autochrome photography from the early days of photography. Autochrome is the most beautiful color I think there's ever been, is autochrome. And so, whether wherever in the world, France especially, with French photographers going around the world shooting in autochrome, which was a whole thing in those days, of bringing back exotic photography from the four corners of the world in autochrome for rich you know, philanthropists who collected them on glass. I mean, if you're an aspiring DP, you have to enter the world of autochrome. It's so inspirational of what color is and where it comes from, and it's just wonderful. So this is our attempt to shoot one scene. It's a few more scenes than I'm showing here, but in autochrome with an autochrome look. But it was done largely in post. Yeah, let's have a look at it. Let's look at the clip. It's not on the interior, the autochrome. It's when we go out.
Okay.
Obviously, they're all hunting trophies.
Wow.
All heads of animals. Lining that, and they were really there. That wasn't a dressing. That was really there.
Oh wow! Okay.
I was attending to the loose ends of the case.
Obviously, this is on film, on celluloid, and we printed it pretty much dark. So you can't really imagine if we'd shot it on digital, I'd never have made it darker than this. So I don't know.
Right.
You know.
Can I ask what stock you shot on?
You could, but if I can remember, I shot it on Kodak. I've got a feeling it was 200 Kodak Vision 2 200 ASA. I think it was.
Oh wow!
I think I shot the film on 200.
Yes.
I didn't want the extra grain off of the 500.
The 500. Yeah.
I wanted it to be. So this is the autochrome. You can see the vignetting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's buffering, but I can't really see it. But the image is flickering as well and giving this early cinema look.
Yes. We can definitely see it. Yeah.
You see that?
Yeah.
Good. Now her face and the landscape is very cleverly. The DI is really brilliant on it. A very talented DI colorist, and it is very autochrome. The faces, very autochrome.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, this warm, magical. Well, obviously helped by the time of day that we shot this in, but yes, I was really pleased with the way this resolved as an autochrome experience.
Nice.
So obviously that film did me, you know, the photography got really well reviewed, and it did me very proud for future productions.
We studied that.
Yeah.
We studied that film. Like I was like studying it like frame by frame. When we were, so
great.
So I remember that film very well.
Yeah, it was a great film to do. Very, very fine experience I had on it.
Right.
Now, what should we get? Should we show? I would like to, having looked at that, and we're talking about technique here. Why don't we show a clip from another year, the 4 Seasons clip?
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the first clip we've showed on about Mike Lee, because, and I was keen not to do too much about Mike, because you as an audience can tap into many. If you want to see any more of me talking, you can see, if you can stand to see any more of me talking, you can see many Q&As that I've done about Mike's films. You know, I did one for French students, Parisian film students, which I know is available on YouTube, where I talk all the time for 2 hours about working with Mike. And I suggested to Kartik that we didn't on this. talk about Mike all the time because I've just done so much of that.
Right.
But I think that it's a good time because it's specific and it's to do with what we've just looked at on The Illusionist about tricks and technique in cinematography. And I think this 4 Seasons clip from Another Year, it's not one sequence, they're clips from throughout the film. I think it's worth showing. So I'm ready to go when you are, Obed, and to have a look at it. Yeah, fine. So I'm going to talk over this. This evokes spring. It wasn't shot in spring. The film is called Another Year, and it's about 4 seasons. So here we go. This evokes summer. Now, shot this with a warmer look and a colder look on the spring sequence, and on the summer sequence here, a warm look. Blessed, she's being kissed by the sun, and then we go to this, and this is autumn.
Yeah,
a lot of production design here, and I put in a lot of smoke. I put in a lot of smoke here to evoke autumn mists, and then a colder look, and then here we have a winter look, and it was all cleared back. It's the same plot of land, but it was all cleared back, and I went with fast stock, and they the ground, and we came up with 4 seasons. But those 4 seasons, all of them were shot consecutively in like a week. In a week, 10 days. We would shoot spring, which we did, and in that it's where the family grow their vegetables and stuff. In the UK, we call them allotments, and a little strip of land, and you're able to grow your own vegetables, etc. So we shot the family in spring, in there, the husband and wife, and then we went away. We would be shooting other things, and the production designer and his team would go in and make it summer, and they would make all the flowers and everything, and we went back, and we were very lucky with the weather. We had very good light for summer, sunlight, or if it wasn't, we waited until we did have nice light, and then we turned over when we had the good light, and then and each one I did on different film stocks.
Nice. Okay.
I did it on I think the summer one I did on 50D, and the spring one would have been can't remember now, 100 perhaps, or 200, and then there'd be the daylight stock, 250 daylight, and then the winter one was on 500. So we did it on. And a mixture of Fuji and Kodak as well. So the idea was to give it the feel of 4 seasons, but as I say, it was a summer. We shot the film in summer, and that was made as a collaboration between production design and us behind the camera.
Did you employ any filters, in-camera filters at all?
I don't really do that. I can't remember if I did have any filters on it. I'm not sure I did.
Okay.
I don't know whether. I think perhaps I thought about it for the autumn, but it was that sort of weather, and the smoke gave us great atmosphere. I don't think I did. No, I don't tend to use them.
Okay. So this, and you mentioned this was shot in the summer, yeah? That sequence. Okay, wow, lovely.
All the sequences were. Now, I mean, winter feel. Obviously, these are just chapter headings, and they are in the film. That spring, autumn, winter, but then there's all the shooting around those 4 seasons in the film. So so we had to evoke that feeling at the family home and around them, and when they went out. So yeah, it was a lot of work. And and the thing is about this is that what's interesting to me is that basically Mike, we always do big tests for Mike's films, a lot of testing, which is usually, when I say a lot of testing, it's usually one test, or it might be one test that takes a couple of days. But Mike was obviously not clear about what he was going to do for this film. Obviously, it wasn't called Another Year then. The type they're never called anything apart from the year. So they're called Untitled 14 or Untitled 15. Untitled 15 is the name of Mr. Turner. The title comes much later. So Mike didn't quite know, I don't think. I think he was unsure about how to structure the film. And it wasn't, in no way was it about 4 different seasons. And then we did the test. And Mike wasn't there for the test. Mike's with the actors rehearsing. It's well documented, all of that. I did the test separate, and then I show him. And I show him in a cinema. And we're all involved in it. The whole company is involved in these tests. Production design, everybody. So we shoot these tests. And I gave Mike some different looks. I gave him that. Basically, I gave him a winter look, a spring look, a summer look, and an autumn look. And it was about just showing possibilities, not of seasons, but the look for the whole film. And then we looked at it in the cinema, and everybody was there. And Mike absolutely loved this test. He loved it. He said to me after the test was finished and the lights came on in the theatre, he said, "It's absolutely fantastic. I have the film. I know what the film's going to be now." Wow. Said, "Oh, right." I said, which look did you like? He said, "All of them. All of them. I love all of them." He said, "I have it. I'm going to make this film over a period of a year, 4 seasons. We're going to make it seasonal. We're going to start." And he had it. He saw in the test, he saw the possibility of his film. So that's what we did. We shot the different film stocks through the different times of the year. The production design had to be, you know, like frosted or bright and sunny. It was a lot of work. It really worked for the film. It really works for it. And it's the dead of winter, hard, and then the summer. And I'd like to show, it was the dead of winter, spring, summer, and then autumn. It's like that. And I would like to show this clip now. If Obaid can cue it up, I'd like to show a clip of the other clip of Another Year. And it's called... This clip here, you can play it, I'll talk over it, of He Needs the Affection. Yeah. It's really... I mean, there are very few filmmakers in the world who can really, for me, tell a story like that. It's so simple, but it's so effective.
Like I sometimes when I'm working with some people, sometimes I tell them we do have the questions pop out of saying that do we actually need coverage for the scene, or have we just got it in that one shot? Sometimes we just have the magic that happens in that one shot. And it's beautiful when that actually happens. And when you have great talent and actors with you, I think it's just magical when it happens. So
I think it is too. It needs the strength of the director, really.
Yes, true.
The strength and the self-confidence with a director to say, no, we don't need it. Yeah. So often they want to, but they're scared. They're scared of not getting it, and what will happen in the cutting room if they've not got it. But, you know, if they have got it, without the reverse, without the coverage, what could be better than that?
Right.
And then say, we don't need it, let's move on. That to me is so great. And if I can feel that coming when I'm on a film, and we are, you know, I might say we could just do this in one. You know, if we just adjusted it a bit, or perhaps move round or whatever,
right?
You can get this in one and not do a reverse. And you know, that can often be a positive thing for the director who's desperate to move on to the next scene and you know, the schedule and the
right.
But sometimes, you know, they will insist on getting the reverse when they don't need it, and it won't be used later.
Right.
You know, so because they're carrying it almost the reverse as an insurance policy in case they do need it later. But nothing will you either need it. I'll say this: there's a famous scene in Secrets and Lies where the young black woman, right, who's met her birth mother, who's white, for the first time a few minutes ago. They sit in a cafe together, and there's this famous 5-minute scene that's just held in a 2-shot without a cut, and it became very, very famous at the time when and how incredibly bold that was to shoot as just a 2-shot. But the truth is that we weren't sure at the time. Mike wasn't sure that it would hold.
Right.
So we did reverses on that, and of course then it did hold as a 2-shot. I might never use the reverses, but he had them anyway.
Right.
So, but he made the choice, and I think the choice, it was very strong with him and the editor. His editor is fantastic, a guy called John Gregory, wonderful editor, and he's, you know, very forthright. And when they were in the cutting room, they decided that actually it does work, and they held it and they didn't cut away. But that's also a big thing. If you've got the shot in the cutting room, you tend to use it as an editor. I have to say, you know, a lot of editors have been very, very tempted to put the reverses in as well as the 2-shot, because it moves the story along and all that stuff, right? Well, yeah, the scene is well known and very strong because of the fact that he didn't cut, but we had the footage. We did shoot reverses.
True.
So even Mike sometimes doesn't, you know, have the confidence in the scene not to say no, we just do that 2-shot. We didn't then. We did coverage. Yeah.
That's great. And did you do the scene just having read about the way Mike Lee works? Sorry to go back to that. Was there a lot of improv when you all blocked the scene, and how was it for you?
Yeah, I'd go further than that. I'd go further than that, Kartik. I'd say there is no improvising.
Okay.
Cool. Once he's devised those scenes with the actors, and they've settled on that, that's definitive. It's then written down as a scene, and when we're shooting it, it's absolutely locked. There is no improvisation at all. And if there is, for some reason, when we're shooting it, he'll cut the camera, you know, and we'll. Yeah, there is no improvisation.
Oh wow!
The improvisation has been in the process of bringing the scene to life.
Right.
Mike and the actors. That's all improvisation. That is why he chooses the actors he does, because they can improvise.
Right.
But once they bring it to show us, and then we film it, it's no longer, it's locked down.
Wow. Okay.
No improvisation. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Do you should we move on to another one of Mike's films, Mr. Turner?
Yes. yes, we could do. We could show this montage.
Yes.
And see. Yeah, let's show this montage, because I've just got this feeling that time is going to run out for us, and that we should probably show this Turner clip, and then stop showing the stop showing clips and get audience reactions and see if there are questions. Should we do that?
Yeah, we can, for sure.
Yeah, I think it would be a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And what about if I talk over it?
Yeah, that's great. I was just going to ask you, how long did you shoot the film for? If I may ask.
With Mike, when they have a schedule, it's built on Mike also. It's built on the presumption of Mike bringing the film to life and bringing scenes to life with the actors, because the film is made from beginning to end in those weeks. So it might be 16 or 17 weeks, but a lot of that time is spent with Mike just bringing the actors, bringing in scenes to us. So what we're actually shooting is probably 8 or 9 weeks, I would think.
Oh,
probably more like 8, actually, I would say.
And did you have the luxury over here also of waiting for the right light and waiting?
I'd say more than that. I would say we were blessed with the most gorgeous light that year in 2015. I think it went down as the most glorious summer ever in the UK.
Lovely.
So we were blessed with fantastic light, and I put this together, this 3-minute video of this 3-minute cut montage. Yeah. I prepared it for the ASC Awards. They wanted all the nominees to put a clip together. So that's what I did it for. I edited my favorite moments in the film, my favorite visual moments in the film, to a soundtrack, and showed it like that, you know. And I still show it now for Q&As and things. I quite like it.
So about just about Turner, since we're talking about the film, was there how did the look of the film come about? Was there any influences that you had?
I mean, of course,
apart from
as a film, of course, it wasn't such a mystery as previous. It wasn't such a mystery because, of course, Turner had existed.
Right.
So Mike didn't have to, you know, bring that character to life from nothing. He had Turner as a real, you know, we were making a film about a real artist. So that informed us really about how to go about the film. We decided that, I mean, how can I put it? I researched Turner like mad. I mean, like really, production. Yeah. We all, the Bible was Turner's painting.
Right. It's beautiful.
And you know, we decided in the camera. I work often with the same team on camera in the UK, and basically we looked at Turner's paintings and even his palette, his real palette, it still exists in the gallery in London.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They have lots of, because Turner is a British institution that his work, it wasn't always like that, of course. He was completely forgotten about for years after he died.
Oh, yeah? Oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A very sad story. And but he came back. He had a second wind. He came back and became like an institution, our greatest painter ever. But he wasn't always regarded as that. So at the Tate, anyway, they have his palette of colours, the colours he used on the canvases. And we looked at those colours and discovered, and it was more my assistant, who is a very, very fine stills photographer, my assistant, my first MC. He really analysed Turner's work and for me, and found that Turner used a lot of yellow in the highlights and a lot of teal, a blue-green teal in the shadow areas.
Right.
With that, we then introduced that into the coloration and the LUT that we used.
Wow.
And did quite a few tests. Now the real thing here is that I did test. I did test with this coloration to give our images a kind of Turner-esque look. And that also was very much driven by the lenses I used. I mean, I used an Alexa to shoot. Film was shot digitally. And
what lenses did you use?
I used the old Cook Speed Pancros.
Nice ones.
Here in the UK, they had these lenses that they'd rehoused by a company called TLS. And these TLS Cook Speed Pancros were very sought after by commercials DPs. And now I don't know whether you ever use them yourself, but
I've been wanting to. I've never got a chance to.
Absolutely gorgeous, and they're completely mismatched, aberrations, glass problems. I mean, but they look like you're looking into the 19th century.
Nice.
And they've got the strangest depth of field, and they're completely wild, really. I also used them on Motherless Brooklyn a few years later.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Showed them to Edward, and Edward loved the look of them, absolutely loved it. They gave, on a 1950s film in New York, they gave the same experience of being antique, vintage glass. And in fact, I used them, I showed them and tested them for the last film I did, which was Supernova, for this director called Harry McQueen. And Harry loved the look of them. And I put those up against many other modern lenses. And when he saw those, he said, that's it, that's the one. So, yeah, these lenses were critical to the look of the film. And, and so I tested other lenses first, because these weren't available when I was first doing my testing, and then they became available. And I then saw them and thought, oh my God, we need to use these lenses. These are exactly the right feel for a film about Turner. And also, it's also something about the digital thing as well. These lenses fight tooth and claw against a digital looking image. They resolve in the patterner. I mean, it just gives another dimension to modern technology. It makes it immediately, it takes it off to film, or, you know, whatever, painterly. And so the combination of the LUT, the coloration, with those colors that I've been describing of teal and yellow in the highlights, and the way Turner worked it, along with those lenses, those Cook Speed Pancro lenses, along with a lot of smoke. I used a lot of atmosphere. Very little. There's very little fill in the film, but there's a lot of atmosphere from smoke in the film.
Right.
So that combination gave us that Turner-esque. Although, and we never really tried to copy his paintings or evoke his paintings. We did our own thing. But what the photography hopefully evoked the period that Turner lived in, and also what he was looking at, because there was a lot of shooting from behind Turner,
right,
at the landscape in front of him. There was a lot of that. Through his eyes, we were looking over and over again.
right. There's a lot of what I found when I watched the film was it was really, really beautiful, but at no point did I feel that
Yeah, we were trying to copy.
that you were trying to copy, or that even it didn't overpower like the main story. You know, it's beautiful. So
Yes.
that's the way it's great that the way it just gels together. And
we never really tried to copy any painting. It's got we had magical light when we were shooting, fantastic light. And so again, you asked me before about did we consider what time of day? Yes, yes, yes. Yes, all the time. Nothing was left to chance. We were there at the right time. The sun was there. We were there. Boom. That's the
would
right
you
thing.
really just one last question, since we're talking about time and the right time, before we move on to the audience question, is what I wanted to ask. Do you believe in happy accidents?
Yes, you had one just there on that clip. Now, let me ask Obaid something here. Are you able to go back to the beginning of that clip again and just show the beginning of it? Just show it without sound. I can just talk through it.
Like, I completely believe in it. It's like I heard about it the first time when I was studying in the US, and I remember Conrad Hall mentioning about it.
About accidents.
Yes.
Yeah. Now there's two things about now here. Just freeze it there, Obaid. Hold it there. Now just go back to that shot if you can. There. Can you freeze it? There.
Yes.
You see these horses here?
Yes.
These horses were wild horses. These horses appeared, and we're right on the scene here. We're right on cliffs, and there's wild horses there. Those wild horses, they you just hold the clip. Those wild horses, Turner walks towards this castle.
Yes.
Now, the castle Turner photographed over and over again. Not photographed, painted over and over again.
Yeah.
Just hold the clip on the screen, if you can. Yes. He painted this view many times. So that real location, we had this gorgeous light just before the sunset. Turner walks past. This is like second take, I think it was. I think the first take wasn't so good, and we ran it a second time. I can't remember now. And when we ran it a second time, these horses all appeared in a line coming up from the cliff and followed Turner as we walked forward. Just play it if you can, Obaid. So, no, don't worry. So that's
okay.
Yeah, we should end it there. That was a truly happy accident.
Beautiful.
There's one thing I would say about happy accidents, and that is they take place much more when you're on location than when you're in the studio.
I agree.
Because you might have the most fantastic things happening outside of a window, outside of a doorway, just light and the way it hits a room, and you think to yourself, "Oh my God, look at this! It's beautiful. Just shoot like this. Let's shoot now."
Yeah.
And or you know, just it's got a reality, an organic, whatever, a reality to it that is superb. And of course, natural daylight has that, sunlight, that, where happy accidents in terms of lighting don't take place that much in a studio.
True, true. I
prefer life on location. And also it suits my documentary background, because that's how it's always been for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dick. Should we open it out for questions?
Yeah, if anybody's left there, that is, they might have all gone home.
I don't know.
Thank you so much. Thank you, both of you, for such a wonderful session. It's been like a master class on cinematography today. Discussing Dick's work in context of the, masters of photography and painting. It's been so wonderful for the cinematography students as well. So we have, a couple of questions now, because it's been like a marathon session today. It's like more than 2 hours now. So, yeah. So it's like a complete master class today for the cinematography students, especially. So first question comes from Umar. He asks, Dick, he has been following most of your work, especially he likes the, your work in The Illusionist. So would you sort of recommend, maybe top 5 cinematography work from all across the world to the cinematography students?
Just say the last piece for me again. What did you say?
Umar says he follows, most of your work, especially he likes The Illusionist. He likes, he considered it like one of the best cinematography work in all across world. So he's asking now, would you recommend, another 5 work from, some of the renowned cinematographer from the world, which you personally like, which you would like to recommend to the cinematography students? Top 5 best cinematography work, including yours.
Not all. I missed it. Not all mine. Do you mean for other cinematographers as well?
Yes. Yeah. What would your top 5 be?
Top 5? Oh my God.
That's the most difficult question, I know.
It's the most difficult question, that. I can only think back to the last year. You look at my top 5 in the last year.
Yeah.
How about that? How about my top 5 in the last year? I just couldn't sit here and compile a list of the 5. And is he talking about cinematically as well?
Cinematically, yes.
Right. Okay. So in the last year,
I think I should also take this down.
I would say Roger Deakins' 1917, his last revolution. I would say Parasite.
Oh, great.
Because I adore the look of Parasite. I think it's absolutely fantastic.
Right.
And these are all cinematically, yeah. I love what Robbie Ryan did on The Favourite. I don't know whether you're conversant with that film.
Yeah, I'm sure he's writing all of your examples.
I think all of us are.
Yeah.
A few more. I thought The Irishman looked fantastic. And I thought Robbie Richardson did a wonderful job on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So there you go. And I also thought that Dick Pope did a pretty good job on Motherless Brooklyn, but we won't go into that. You need to see the film to know.
So Umar is going to add that work also beside the Illusionist, actually. So now we have, I think, Umar, this question is well answered. Now we have another question from Mr. Shakil. He says, how do you recommend for the cinematography student? Should they enter into a film institute first, take a full training course of the cinematography, or they should actually join a cinematographer instead of joining a school? So how do you recommend, the youngsters to, opting for this profession of cinematography?
What was the alternative to film school? What alternatives did you?
Alternative is that, if they could directly join a cinematographer for an internship.
Join a cinematographer as an internship. Yeah. Yeah,
right. Well, they're both are very valid. I mean, the trouble really is that when I was trying to be a one second. When I was trying to be a cinematographer, it was all about joining. It was all about joining as an assistant, really, or a trainee, a clapper loader, or whatever, you know, like that. There were very little film school opportunities. There were hardly any film school opportunities. The only film school in London when I was young was too expensive. I couldn't afford it. I was you know, I had no money, and the only way I could do it was like by getting someone to take me as their assistant, not a mentor, but assistant. Now, nowadays, most cinematographers come out of film schools. Now, I don't know whether that's the case in India, but it's certainly the case here that the ones who seem to achieve becoming a cinematographer in a short time are the stars who come out of major film schools, who've obviously got real talent, and they also come out of those film schools as friends with, say they want to be a cinematographer, a DP. They'll have already been making films in the film school for other students who want to be directors. Now, often this carries on from, this relationship will carry on from film school into real life filmmaking, you know, as opposed to, you know, film school filmmaking. Real life filmmaking is where someone is going to pay you for doing it. You know, the big difference is getting someone to pay you to do the job. Now, if you already know a director and you've struck up a relationship and made films with that director, then quite often they come out and certainly their first films are with each other. And that was the case with Roger Deakins and Mike Radford. When they came out of film school together, they were both at Beaconsfield, and they made a film called Another Time, Another Place with each other. You know, they were best friends at film school, and Roger did all Mike Radford's stuff there. So it was natural for Roger to shoot that film. But anyway, there.
Can I also answer that?
Difficult. It's difficult.
Yeah, I think.
Can I also answer that question?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Because I come from a film school. I think going to a film school, if you can afford to go to a film school now, because there are a lot more film schools now, is very important. It is important because it does cut down the number of steps. It does make, like Dick pointed out, it does make getting to be a DP, it does make it shorter, the steps. But I think more than that, I always tell people that if you can go to film school, it gives you the advantage of making mistakes and learning from it. If right now, if I was in the real world and I made a mistake, I would probably be fired. But in film school, at least, it gives you that small advantage. And then you come out and rightly, as Dick pointed out, you do strike up relationships with your fellow students and your colleagues and stuff, and then you can get that. But if you can afford to go to film school, I would recommend it. But it's not that you cannot become one.
I think that's right. I think it's right. I'll just say this, that I work with a lot of interns, trainees. Most film productions that go and shoot here carry a trainee with them. And those trainees don't necessarily come from film school. They don't. They come from other areas of life, and they, I would say, universally struggle after they've been doing their internship and their traineeship. very few of them are able to transcend from doing that as a trainee to doing it as a living. There's just too many. There's too many of them.
Right.
And unless you, well, you know, when, in the days where I was like young and an assistant, that documentaries gave me the perfect opportunity to be an assistant. But they don't exist anymore like that. What documentary crews are going out with an assistant? They're going out as one man, one woman, and a small digital camera with a microphone on the front. It doesn't really work like that anymore. There's no training ground. Either you're doing it or you're not doing it. So I completely agree with Kartik that actually, if you're able to go to a film school and meet a whole peer group of people who are all doing the same as you, who've all got the same love and aspiration to cinema or cinematography or directing or movies, you're in a much better state to become a cinematographer than if you choose the hard way. Because that hard way used to be in movies, clapper loader, focus puller, operator, and then, if you're lucky, DP. But it often stopped as clapper loader, focus puller, operator, stop there. Because it's a whole other ball game to jump from operator to DP, and there's not that many people do that. That technician, it's a technician thing. They're technicians, loader, focus, operator. Whereas the DP might have come out of stills photography. You just don't know. This is a very interesting point. That if for aspirational DPs, I would say you should certainly be considering not only movies and cinema and anyway, work like that, moving pictures, but also stills photography.
True.
It's really important, and a lot of stills people, you know, that people like Anton Corbin, they come out of being fantastic stills photographers. I mean, in a way, it's another route, I think, through stills, and you've already established your talent in other fields. Just to do it the hard way, very difficult.
Yeah.
I think, Mr. Shakil, your question is well answered. Now we have another question from Mr. Obedullah. He asked, how do you shoot low light scenes? What kind of lights you use to shoot the low light scenes?
Well, I haven't just got one. Hopefully, I haven't got one trick in my pocket. Every situation. So it's, in a way, it's an impossible to answer question. What I would say is that you should be true to the mood of what you're trying to achieve, and true to the mood of what you're looking at in, say, a room or an environment. And say you have a lamp in a room, and that seems to be all that there is there, then I would say you would choose a lighting fixture, either from the lamp itself, and be true to it just being like practically lit, or to shoot with little small units that basically augment that light from that practical, that augment it, and make it possible for it to look just as if it's just that one lamp. Now, if you look at this last film, well, not last one, but Motherless Brooklyn, that I did with Edward Norton, it's a very dark film, and it's got many, many very dark scenes. And I found that it was more about taking light away than it was of adding it, of starting with something, and then you just turn this light off, turn that light off, and just see how it is darker, 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 to evoke the right mood. Now, there are all sorts of little tricks around that you can use to when you're doing low light. Of course, one of the things people do is start off with it not so low, and then later on in the DI suite, you go whoom and take it right back. And you can do that. And that can look very good, you know. So you, but then what's very nice on a film is that when you're there on location or wherever it is in the studio, that the director is confident that he's going to get it that low. But you know, I mean, that's the dichotomy. You can show them it really low, but that's just a turning adjustment on the monitor. You could start off with it brighter than that, just so that you know you have it if things change, and then you can wind it back down in the DI. So I think it's also about very small units of light.
Did you
very small units that you're just a little bit, not too much, not everywhere.
I think Dick also used a lot of low light. Another example of good stuff is on The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind.
Yes.
Didn't you have a lot of low light situations there as well?
The house in the African village that the boy lived in was they had no electricity, so they were really poor. They had no electric, and so at night it was dark. Right, there was no practical lighting. The only practical lighting was with tiny small oil lamps with oil in them, and which I used all the time. And I would put that oil lamp into the scene to light them, say almost like a you know, one of those sort of Rembrandt-y type things where they're all in the room and they're all lit from underneath by the one oil lamp in the middle.
Right.
So I was doing that with I would do it like wide shots with the actual oil lamp. This is really a key element in the way I work. I would do a wide shot, say with just the oil lamp, and then you would get in a wide shot all the feel of that light coming up and hitting people. And then when you move into the closer work, so that you're no longer in that wide shot situation, I would swap it out for something like a really small China ball, which I would take the oil lamp away and put the China ball in the middle of the table, really small. I'm talking about little China, little bulbs.
I love those, yeah.
With a little bit of flicker on them. And then to do the close-up work, the mid-shots and close-ups with that, because the light from a China ball is a lot more beautiful than the light from an oil lamp once you go in tight. It's much more sympathetic, and you know, with the right bulb, the right muzzling over it to soften it more, and that sort of trick, swapping a key light, a real practical one, to get the mood, and then when you go in to match that mood with smaller units. So yeah, that film's full of low light tricks and like that. Yeah,
I think Ubadillah, your question is well answered, and you have got a lot of tips from Mr. Dick Bob. So we have another question from Ram. He says, Mr. Dick Bob, I admire your work, but the world from celluloid to now digital, especially the iPhone, the cinematography has sort of taken a 360-degree turn now. So now in Hollywood especially, the people are shooting on iPhones, especially Steven Soderbergh, he shot his film on iPhone. So what are the challenges you got while shooting a film on iPhone? What are the challenges one can expect if shooting a film on iPhone?
Right, well, of course, I've never shot a film on an iPhone. I've never done that. All I know is I can tell you is that I should imagine the challenge for me would be the image is so small, you'd have to be relying on the fact that all you're looking at is a tiny little picture that if you have aspirations to showing this film on a bigger screen, you better be getting it right. But having said that, I'm doing a digital intermediate, a DI here at the moment, basically like you, the three of us are here, and I'm using an iPad Pro, the latest Apple iPad, and with a Retina screen that is so amazingly good, that we're able to do the DI on it. Now, we won't finish the DI on it. We'll do it in a DI suite on a big cinema screen. But all the initial work leading up to just a few days at the end for a DI suite when the lockdown finishes and we're able to go back to work, and these post-production houses reopen. Until then, my tiny little 11-inch or whatever it is, perhaps 13-inch iPad Pro is like the most fantastic image. And also, you can shoot the camera with its different lenses is also fantastic, really great quality. And the iPhone 11 is like that, with a brilliant picture on the iPhone 11. So good luck to you. I would say you're looking at the future there. I know I've seen films shot on iPhones, but I haven't seen them shot on the latest, really, really high quality iPhones like the 11. Have you done that, Kartik?
No, I haven't. I've done some commercials where I've shot with the iPhone, but that's purely because I didn't have any permissions or nothing. So, like inside an aircraft, so I didn't have anything to do. So I shot with the iPhone. But yeah, when you marry them in with the other cameras, they're as good.
It stands up.
You know?
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
The only thing would be that goes against it is probably the advantage of us using different lenses on bigger cameras and getting your depth of field and that kind of stuff. So
yes, I would say that's something you could use as a discipline. That you only had. I mean, there's plenty of films in the history of cinema that were only shot on one lens, like the 50mm. And when Roger Deakins shot 1917, he only used the 40mm basically.
Right.
There were a couple of shots on the 35, but the whole film's on a 40, which is a great lens, and indeed my favourite lens for filming, because it doesn't play everything too wide, and
same here.
It needs to be the perfect human view of our eyesight. So a 40 seems to suit a natural POV very well. So there are no rules. If your person who's asking this question imagines for 1 minute that I would have an answer about what's good, what's bad about shooting an iPhone, I think he or she just better get on with it and make the film like that, because I think that's very exciting and doesn't need my input or what I think I think one of the problems could be just holding it steady.
You got gimbals now. You got everything. You got everything to hold.
You couldn't hold it. You'd probably be on a rig, on a gimbal rig or whatever.
Yeah. It's all there. It's like you have a small one that can hold it steady, like smooth.
Yeah,
everything.
Anyway, so the answer is don't ask me. Just get on with it.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I think this question is also well answered. Now we have another question. Dick, someone is asking, what is your favorite lenses? Do you use zoom or prime lenses?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, no, it's got to be prime lenses for me. And here's the thing. I'll add this to this without going into great detail. But when I'm shooting with Mike Lee, all these films I've done with him over 30-something years, I don't even carry a zoom lens. I never Take one with me. Ever. So, I don't really know about zoom lenses. I mean, they're great big cumbersome things. They're a pain in the neck to use. They do give you the latitude of being able to change the frame very quickly, but I've never really found that to be an advantage. It's often a negative. That if you feel that you need to go and zoom out, that's the bit that the editor will like. And where you zoom out like that, or zoom in, and they'll use it, and that makes me kill myself. When you look back at, say, films of 1960s, and like films of Stanley Kubrick, like Barry Lyndon, there are a lot of zooms in it, big zooms, and to me, they spoil the cinematography. They make it look very dated. So I hate watching films that have got zooms in them.
Great. So we have, I think, last question of the session today. The question is, Dick, do you follow the work of any Indian filmmaker or cinematographer?
Well, now I'm going to be following the work of Kartik.
Oh, right? Wow. Thank you.
I'm going to watch everything he's ever done.
Thank you. I'm nervous about that, but
yeah, I will. But the other thing that I'd say about this is that, yes, I do like the films of Ray and of Sajid Ray, and my main collaborator, Mike Lee, is a disciple of the films of Sajid Ray. A disciple. There's 3 filmmakers that Mike is based his entire career and oeuvre on their films, and one is Ray, and the other is Ozu in Japan, and the other is Robert Bresson in France. The films like and Azad, Balthazar, Robert Bresson's films. Bresson, Ray, Ozu, very quiet, very observational, very considered, and emotion, and can be really striking emotionally. Now, Robert Bresson, he only ever used a 50mm. Now, funny that, and I think Ozu was the same. I think Ozu used one lens, didn't he, Kartik? It was Drew.
Yeah. Ozu always used one lens, and he would always shoot from the sitting down position.
Yes.
So do I, but mostly it's because I do like to sit down. I'm getting too old to stand like that, like hours behind the camera. But I do love that. See, that's very Japanese. That is. That's sitting on the floor with your legs crossed, and the way they. I mean, I can see that. So that is a very natural height to be in, especially if you're Japanese. And I mean, I don't think. There we go. So the answer to your question is Sajid Ray, but it's more about Mike than it is about me. But I love his films too. And in terms of lens height and angles, I tell you who else was obsessed by the height of a camera on anything he did was Gordon Willis in America. Now, perhaps Gordon Willis was also influenced by those masters who only shot from a certain height, because he was. If you read about Gordon Willis, he insisted that the camera had to be. I think he was like 4'6" or 5 foot above the ground.
Right.
And that was that's where he shot most everything from, and he would fight against moving the height. With directors, he'd say, "No, this is the way it should be." I remember being in a film studio in Arcade Studios in Mumbai, and they were making a Bollywood type film.
Right.
I always remember this, that when they'd finished a shot and the camera would be on some sort of palanquin a kind of with the camera would be set in the center, and 4 men would go around the edges, and they'd lift it up on their shoulders, and they'd move it to the next setup across the stage. It would be put down, and seconds later they were ready to shoot. They never changed the height of that. First time I've ever really seen it. So I'm talking to you about this, but actually, yeah, all these it was like a musical, a big budget extravaganza musical. I watched all day. They never changed the camera. The camera was set and probably about 4'6" above the ground, fixed on a palanquin, and then put on, and then they were shooting seconds later, and I've never seen anything like it. There you go.
Yeah,
it's a good way
too heavy.
Very interesting, very interesting.
Great.
So with this, I think we come to the end of the session today. It's been so fruitful session today. I am sure, you know, especially film students, cinematography students, they have benefited with this session immensely. The kind of conversation Mr. Karthik had with the eminent Mr. Dick Pauk, I think is going to last with them for a longer duration in their career in the future. So I thank both of you, you know, kindly sparing time for this series today. It's been really wonderful talking to both of you today, and the kind of experiences Mr. Dick Pauk shared with the students today, and the film experts as well. I thank you once again, both of you, for kindly joining us today. And with this, we sort of close this session today here only. And tomorrow I will be back again with another session at 8 p.m. from Los Angeles, USA. A very eminent filmmaker from USA will be joining us tomorrow at 8 p.m. So kindly join us on our FB page tomorrow at 8 p.m. Till then, goodbye, good day. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Goodbye now. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a nice day.